Arteta! What a strike! What a screamer! And a fantastic goal! Arsenal back in it! And here's Liverpool, lines it up, finds the net. Arsenal in front.
And we are live. Welcome to the Arsenal Vision live pre-match show for our European semi-final. All that crap that Spurs fans and Liverpool fans went through for that hokey thing they call the Champions League. This is the real semi-final. This one right here, Arsenal-Valencia. And here to talk about it with me is Scott. Hello, Scott.
Yeah! Oh boy, I'm excited. I'm ready to go.
Are you? Oh, look how small you are. You're always so small. Let's make you bigger. You grows up and you grows up and you grows up. All right, there is some news breaking as we speak right on Twitter. Have you seen it yet?
No, I've been preparing for this podcast, so I haven't looked.
I don't believe you, but we have a lineup. Would you like to hear it?
Yes. Wait, hold on. We got breaking news alerts.
Oh, look at that. Breaking news. All right, here we go. I'm going to read off the lineup, and I'm going to stare into the camera as I do this. It looks like the lineup is, you ready for this? Check in goal. Wait, I already need a reaction shot for this. What do you think? Check in goal? Nope.
I mean, it's
what you expected?
Yeah, it's expected, but I would have gone.
Okay, enough of you. You're off the screen again. Here we go. It's check in goal. It is, let's see, Mustafi, Socrates, Koscielny, Maitland-Niles, Xhaka, Guendouzi, Kolasinac, Ozil, Aubameyang, Lacazette. I'm going to read that off again, Scott, because I don't know that I fully understand what I've just read. So Mustafi, Socrates, Koscielny, Maitland-Niles, and Kola. So back three with Maitland-Niles and Kolasinac at wingbacks. Xhaka, Guendouzi, central midfield, Ozil, Aubameyang, Lacazette. So, I mean, it's a lineup that he's tried. It's one that, I think you could say gets a lot of our decent players in there without Ramsey and Torreira, I guess, either, not being up for it. Maybe hasn't looked his best. What do you make of the lineup? What are your feelings?
Well, I was kind of thinking about this yesterday, and I thought the 3-4-1-2 was probably going to be the most likely way that he lined up. I'm a little surprised it's Mustafi over a Monreal in there. So that one, that's choosing between two not great options there. So I guess this is the team we got right now. So can't really complain too much. Can't really make big arguments that this is the wrong team that he's picked. But yeah, I hope it's good enough.
You hope it's good enough. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm not confident that it's good enough, but I'm hoping it's good enough.
Okay, well, let's get our special guest into the show right now. I think it is time to welcome our special guest onto the program, and that is, of course, Shkodran Mustafi, making an early appearance. Shkodran, yes, back on top. Okay, Shkodran, enough. So you're starting in this European semifinal, and you're right there. You're right in the center of the defense. I don't know that a lot of Arsenal fans are going to be happy about that. What can you do to reassure them? I can do all things that I do to reassure. I can play Valencia player onside. No, we don't want that. You want to play them offside. I believe that's wrong. I believe we play player onside. No, you want to play them. You want to play them offside. Well, all right, enough of that. What else can you do? Is there something else you can do to reassure us that it's going to be okay? I can dive to ground, try to go 2 foot or 1 foot even into ground, maybe from very far distance from ball and player. Good? No, not good. Not what we want at all. We want you to stay on your feet and ride the challenge and be a man and battle and go into the duels with some kind of intent to stop the attack. No, I think you're wrong. I think you want me out of play, on ground, watching over shoulder as player go by me. It's starting to suddenly make a lot of sense how you've arrived at this position in your career, Mustafi. Thank you. Yes, lots of not hard work and not trying very hard to get here. Okay, good. That's World Cup winner Mustafi. Great to talk to you. We'll look forward to seeing what you have for us on the pitch tonight. Yes, thank you. Back on top. Well, there you go. That was Mustafi. Scott, any thoughts on his interview? Kind of revealing eye-opening interview.
I mean, yeah, it really is. I mean, you can tell why he's a stat accumulator kind of center back, because he really, likes to get in on those tackles.
Yeah, I have to say, I mean, the more you talk to him, I think you really get a sense of his philosophy about football. And speaking of philosophy about football, let's talk about a man who we will not be seeing wearing an Arsenal shirt again anytime soon, unfortunately. And that is Aaron James Ramsey. He will not be able to play again this season. The news is out that injury has ended his career at Arsenal. So how you feeling about that?
Sad.
I feel sad as well. Do you feel sad about Ramsey specifically, though, or just about the club and how we recover from this?
Well, I kind of feel bad about both, because, it's very Aaron Ramsey way to end his career, because it's something that happened way too often. He would be coming in, showing how important he is to the team. The team was starting to gel around him, really kind of integrating him. And then he suffers a muscle injury, and it really kind of derails things. I kind of really told the story of so many seasons with him at the club. So it sort of makes sense why he's leaving, why the club didn't offer him a big contract. I wish that there was a transfer fee attached with him leaving, but it is what it is now, and we can't change that.
No, I agree. And I mean, I think that, all kidding aside, look, Ramsey finishes at our all-time goal-scoring central midfielder. I think consistency was an issue for him because of injuries, and we can agree. Scott, wouldn't you say that, it's fair that you can make the argument that Aaron Ramsey re-signing would not have been in Arsenal's best interest, that based on his age and his injury track record and the wages that it would have required, that it might have been in our best interest to move on from him? Now, obviously, we should have sold and recouped some money. Losing him for free sucks. But that, you can consistently and simultaneously feel that it's right to not have re-signed him under the circumstances, and also that the club will miss him terribly.
Yeah, I think you can definitely make that case, especially, given his age, his injury history, those kinds of things. Those are huge factors in why it was prudent to not make a long-term commitment to him. The club is already kind of hamstrung with the players they have on the books already. The age profile they have of the attackers is already not ideal. So adding another one who is moving into his late 20s, into the contract would have brought him into his early 30s, and I doubt by the end of his last couple of years of if it would have been a 4 or 5 year contract, by the last couple of years it probably would have been pretty ugly, especially if he the injuries kept mounting and he couldn't continue to play. So on a rational basis, it makes perfect sense why it didn't happen, why you didn't want to take that risk. It's one of those things, if Arsenal were, one player away from winning a title, yes, bring him, sign him up.
Yeah.
Let's push our chips in and go all in and try to win something in the next 2 years, because that's kind of where Juventus are right now. They spent all their money for Cristiano Ronaldo. You can hate him as a person, which I think he is a vile person, but he is a good footballer. And they have really put all of their money on him. They are protecting him from, criminal protection just to be able to keep him in the team. So I guess it makes sense for them to really put all of their money in the next 2 years to try to win the Champions League.
Yeah, look, the hard part now, though, is, there'll be time for eulogizing his career. We're going to miss him tonight. We're going to miss him in this tie. We're going to miss him in the last 2 games where top 4, remarkably, somehow is still even in the conversation. I feel that the back 3 has not really worked as an attacking lineup without Ramsey in midfield. And you look at it again tonight in Xhaka and Guendouzi, they both want to sit deep and distribute. Neither of them is going to carry the ball into the attacking third, but it's not just their final third entries. Ramsey would run past the strikers. He would make the extra man in the box so that when the defenders were trying to defend crosses, trying to defend the wide positions, which we know we're going to try to exploit, he would be an extra body that they had to track. We don't have that extra body. Ozil doesn't really go there. We saw him do it a couple games ago against Palace when he scored that lovely goal. But in general, he wants to sit at the top of the D. He wants to float around that space between the thirds. So, do you think the problem with losing Ramsey just for tonight in this tie in the next couple of games is that if we want to continue to play a back 3 like this, that 2-man midfield without him is a very sort of staid, conservative approach?
Yeah, and I think that is something that definitely you see with this team is it becomes very static, especially when we have a lot of the ball, that we don't have a guy who's going to, do that third man run. That was one of the, real highlights under Arsene Wenger is that, we'd see these 1-2s, you'd get a third player involved, and that guy that made the third run, or the first pass, who's the third man, would make a run into the box while the other two players were doing their combination, and the defense was focused on them. And that is so effective because you get more moving parts and it's harder to track everybody. If somebody did that against Arsenal, there would be no way that our back line would be able to track all those runs, and we would just be cut apart easily. But Arsenal right now don't really have that player to be able to do it. And right now, a lot of our focus is, we have we focus on the half spaces, and then we look to make a pass down to where we can do a cutback. But, sometimes, you got to change that up. And what if instead of going for a cutback, you played it to a player that was running into the box, and, the focus on the defense is looking to shut out that cutback, and that's not where the ball goes. So you need to have that second option. You need to be able to have a plan B. And, Ramsey was somebody who could do that for the team, and it's something that is severely missed.
Yeah, I agree. And so, looking at this lineup, and you see that it's Xhaka and Guendouzi, I think, the fact that Torreira's not in there is something we can talk about. He's been a very important player at times this season, but he's one, like Guendouzi actually, who I think looks a little like he's hit a bit of a wall at this stage of the season. Now, Torreira had picked up some injuries, Guendouzi has not. And we know that with Emery, his starting 11 is just a theory, right? That it may be different by halftime. But how do you feel about him going with Guendouzi instead of Torreira? For me, the one thing that I see with Torreira is with the ball at his feet, beating a man, being able to step past a little bit of pressure and carry the ball. I don't feel we really have that with either of these players so much. So how do you feel about that decision specifically?
So one of the things I like about Torreira is he does seem to at least have an idea of what he's going to do with the ball before he receives it. So Guendouzi, while I think he's a very good player, I think that sometimes his decision-making can be like a half a second too slow, where he needs that, that touch to be able to decide what his next move is going to be. He can get caught on the ball a little too often. I'm not sure exactly if Valencia are going to press Arsenal in this match or not. It'll be interesting to see what they do tactically, or if they're going to sit off and really kind of let Arsenal have the ball and see if they can hit us on the counter. Because if that's the case, then, that probably isn't going to be as much of an issue. But I think that's going to be the main difference between the two. And, I agree with you. I think Torreira is probably going through a bit of a wall where, he's played a lot of minutes already this season, even though he kind of had a little bit of a work into here. But I think he's, 2,600 minutes already this season. So that's a pretty good amount. He had a World Cup where he didn't get a good summer break, and so it'll be interesting to see if he's able to play the next two games, So, yeah, I hope, Guendouzi's able to do it.
Yeah, I agree. And we'll look at the lineup here. We're putting it up on the screen as we speak, so you can get a peek at it. There it is. Again, the Czech decision, you didn't have much to say about it when I announced it. Maybe you were processing. I think given the way our season has gone and the fact that we've let top four in the league become more of a long shot, are you surprised that Leno, who has been so important, and not just with his saves, but with his distribution, is not restored here? Czech is going back to Chelsea at the end of the season with a backroom role, and I certainly don't think that's a betrayal or anything, but I think it's a reminder that that's the club of his home, really. And while you want to give him a send-off with his playing career, Arsenal don't owe Petr Cech anything. He came here in the latter stages of his career and gave us a little stability at a position that really lacked it and needed clarity, especially with what happened with Szczesny going to Juventus, as I hear Tim Stillman crying in the distance. We don't owe Cech anything. Do you feel that this is an overly sentimental choice?
Yeah, probably. Leno is the number one keeper in the club right now. It's pretty obvious. It's usually your number one guy is the guy that plays in the league. And I don't think it's not like it's a young guy who is, seen as the future. So especially a guy who's retiring at the end of the year. It's one of those things like you could do something like this in the last game of the season, make a sub for him, especially if, Arsenal are winning, make a sub for him, let him have that final appearance kind of a thing. That I understand that kind of sentimentality where the game's not really on the line. But these are arguably Arsenal's two biggest matches of the season right here. This is something that has a trophy at the end of it. And I think that is beyond a point where you do it for sentimentality or trying to avoid hurt feelings. I mean, I guess you just got to be ruthless. And I got, at least the impression early in the season that Emery was going to be a guy that was ruthless, that nobody was too big to be sacrificed for the team. You saw that with the early halftime subs, the treatment of Ozil, trying to really kind of put his stamp on things, that, the team comes first. And this really kind of seems like a situation where he isn't putting the team first. He is, putting his, faith in, check, even though he hasn't done anything to, betray that trust, but he's not our number one keeper.
Yeah, I feel the same way. So, I mean, it is what it is. We're just going to have to hope that doesn't wind up costing us. And
exactly, it's not like we're starting a bad player, but this isn't our number one guy.
Right. Yeah. I mean that's it. That's what it is. And so I look up top and I see Ozil, Aubameyang, Lacazette, and once again we're in a position where it just looks like all the responsibility falls on them, doesn't it? I mean, they're the ones who have to find a way past Valencia. Do you think...
So what about this one? How many shots do you think Arsenal are going to get in this game?
I mean, you'd have to say 10 to 12, right?
I think, yeah, because, I mean, you got to imagine that, you're going to get 3 or 4 from hopefully each striker, and then that's between 6 and 8, so you're going to get 4 shots from the rest of the team. Yeah, they better be some good chances here that are created, because I really don't see a lot. Maybe we can get 1 or 2 off of some set pieces, but yeah, there's not a lot of offense, I think, in this with the the 3 main guys.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, well, let's go to your predictions, and we'll switch over to that. So what we're looking at right now are some stats you've worked up, a quad box of stats, so to speak. Maybe you can talk us through what these stats mean as we look at them. Whoops, let me go back to the other one. There you go.
So are we looking at the single game first?
The single game, yep.
All right, so the single game match, so it basically takes the 2 teams based on their stats for the year. So these ones do take into account the Europa League and the league performance. And it basically simulates the match 10,000 times based on where they take shots, where they allow shots. I do have a few things in there about the squad values from Transfer Market to kind of get an idea of those kinds of things with the depth of the teams. And Arsenal are favored, but it's actually pretty close, especially considered Arsenal's performance at home. So a 45% chance of getting a win here. I really hope that they're able to keep the clean sheet. I'd rather it be like 1-0 or, over like a 2-1 or something like that. So there's a good chance that, they are able to keep them out. I think it's just under a 25% chance for a clean sheet today. So, Valencia is not a great attacking team. I was actually looking this up earlier today, and they have nobody who has more than 5 open play goals this season on their squad. And I think they are under 50 goals scored total for the league, which is, not great. So hopefully, that means they're probably due to score, 3 or 4 against Arsenal, but I'm hoping that's not the case.
Okay, well, right now we have another prediction stat graphic thingy, fancy thing on the screen. This one is for the tie as a whole. You want to walk us through it?
Yeah, so this one basically takes that same approach and, adds a second match into it. So what it does is it goes through and it saves the result from the first simulation. So we can see how many away goals are scored, and then it'll also factor in if the match goes into extra times and penalties. And overall, it still shows Arsenal favored, 62 to 37. I was actually looking this up on 538, and they actually have Valencia favored, which I was pretty surprised. They are very high on Valencia. I am not quite as much. I think if you actually split the difference between the two, I think they had it 50 or 54% to Valencia. I have it, 62 to Arsenal. You kind of split the difference. It's 55 to 45 in Arsenal's favor. Mm-hmm. And I think that probably feels about right, a little bit more than a coin flip.
Fair enough. I think for me, I have a hard time feeling good about this game in the context of what we've just seen Arsenal do. I also have a hard time feeling good in the context of having not seen us attack effectively in a back 3 without Ramsey in midfield. And I go back to here, let's actually go to something here. So I'm going to go back to the graphics for a second, because I have this and I want to bring this up. This is where I think it all started to go wrong for us. This is the lineup we played at home to Crystal Palace. Okay? Back 3, Guendouzi, El Neni midfield, Ozil, Lacazette, Aubameyang. Kolasinac was on the wing, but the 4 other defenders, Jenkinson, Mustafi, Koscielny, Mavropanos, and Leno in goal. Losing this game, I think, has been the single-handed biggest problem with our season so far, because if we had 3 points there, right now we'd be odds-on favorites for top 4. No problem, locked up, and be feeling a lot better about things. Dropping these points were really crucial. For you, was this lineup, and realize Socrates was banned at the time. Was Maitland-Niles injured maybe, or no? We were just trying to coax
I think
him
he was just
through a
getting.
period,
I think he was just getting the rest.
But
Xhaka and
what we
Ferrer
saw in
both
this
had
game,
knocks.
I mean,
So.
you can look at that back 5 and say, all right, that's going to struggle defensively. But we were not a force going forward in that game. And I think we run that risk again tonight. And I look at that lineup and I say, Ozil, Lacazette, and Aubameyang. What happened in that game, Scott? Ozil had to drop really deep to get the ball off El Neni and Guendouzi, and that cut him totally adrift from the strike force. I mean, I could see that happening again tonight. But for you, was this lineup sort of the original sin where it started to go the wrong direction?
Yeah, so there's just not attacking thrust in here. And El Neni he's not. I don't want to say that he's bad. I think in the right situation he's fine. I think as long as you have more attacking talent around him, he's fine. For what he does, because he is definitely a squad player. He provides depth. This is hopefully the kind of situation where you would stick him in there when you're going through a situation where your midfield is depleted and you need to just get through a match. He should be good enough to do that. He is Premier League quality. I don't want to come off saying that he should be in League One or something stupid. He is good enough to be in this squad as a squad player who plays 600 minutes a game or 600 minutes a season.
If he plays 600 minutes a game, then he's going to rack up some stats. Let me tell you that.
Yeah. So 600. Yeah. If he plays 600 minutes a season, that means he's been fine. He's helped us through the Christmas period. He's been a rotation option when we've had injuries, but he's not a guy we're depending on all the time. So if that's his role, it's exactly what you expect. He's probably more expensive than what you'd really want for that role, but it's fine. I don't think he was necessarily the problem. It's the problem is that we didn't have enough attacking players to put around him because we have to go with the 3 at the back. We're sacrificing another attacking player in the front of him. We have Carl Jenkinson, who is probably not Arsenal level. I will go out on a limb and say that there. So that was definitely a big miss. We have no width really in this lineup outside of the wing backs. And it's just something that, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, and by the way, if you're confused about what you're seeing on the screen, don't panic. That's not the lineup for tonight. That was the Palace lineup. And a reminder of Scott, what I think really happened here, and, it's fair, is that Unai got sort of confused about how to manage this run of games. He had Europa League coming up. He had the away games, right? The Wolves and Leicester away game. And I think he looked at Palace and thought he could get away with it. And he didn't get away with it. And in retrospect, I'm sure he would have gone back and made riskier choices for Palace, because now you can look and say, well, he only needed that one win. It would have been enough for top 4. At the time, he probably felt he had to win at least one, if not both of those away games as well, right? So do you have sympathy with him trying to target that Palace game as one that he could get away with, or no?
It's hindsight because we know what everybody else did afterwards. You can kind of make sense and say it would have been okay to. It still sucks. It's not good to give up 3 goals to Crystal Palace at home. Could he have done something different? Yeah, that's probably the game that you probably are a little bit more aggressive in. Go do that and then really try to sit back at Wolves. I think, again, that this was probably something that he overreacted to the results and tried to change things too much based on what happened after, and it really punished him. So Arsenal looked really bad against Crystal Palace, so he's like, you know what, we're going to go out and we're going to attack Wolves, and that was probably the wrong tactic. That's exactly what Wolves want you to do, because they are comfortable playing defense. They are going to neutralize what you do and then hit you on the counter. They just do it so often that it's something that I think that they wanted Arsenal to do, and they played right into their hands. And then, coming into the next match where Arsenal again kind of overreacted against Leicester, where they are just like, you know what, we're not going to attack at all. We're going to play counterattacking. We're going to try to neutralize them. Mm-hmm. But that is not Arsenal's forte. We are definitely not a solid defensive team that can do that kind of strategy well, especially when we are without fullbacks. So we cannot really... We can't counterattack through our fullbacks because they are not really outlets. They don't really have great passing. We don't have great defending there. So it's really just kind of a missing strategy that we can't do. So I think there's been a lot of overreacting and swerving from tactic to tactic, reacting to what went wrong in the last match.
All right, let's talk about what we see on the screen right now, and that's the top 4 table, or that's actually just a table. There are 6 teams on it. Don't know how you can say that's a top 4 table. But let's forget about the top 2 for a second, because who cares about them? I think it's fair to say, sadly, that we've let Spurs get away. We had them. We had them in a tough spot. We've let them get away. 12 losses on the season. Still going to find a way to finish behind them. But I look at Chelsea, 2 points above us with a 1-goal difference advantage. Now, as you look at this, Chelsea
giving up those 9 goals and killing the goal difference.
But Chelsea have Watford at home and Leicester away. Let's say in one of those 2 games that they get a draw somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Are we favorites at that point? All we need is Chelsea to just get one draw between those 2. I mean, we have Brighton at home and Burnley away. Now, I'm not saying you can trust us in any game, but to me, it feels like I don't think I trust Chelsea any more than I trust us, and they have the 2 harder games. So let's say they draw the first one, just for argument's sake, and they win the second one. That's probably not how it would go, but let's just say that. If they draw the first one...
That would make the last day of either way...
Well, just hear me out.
The last day of the season a lot more interesting.
If we win 1-0 and they draw, we would be on level goal difference going into the last day where we play at Burnley and they play at Leicester. Squeaky bum time.
I mean, exactly. Coming down to goals scored where Arsenal are favored there at least.
So here's the question then. Let's say we win tonight, but not in a way that, or we get a result tonight that doesn't end the tie. We're still clearly in the tie, so we don't lose like 3-0. But we're not home and dry. We don't win 3-0. Let's say the result tonight leaves this tie alive, okay? And we go into the game at the weekend and we win. And we beat Brighton. And Chelsea get a result that doesn't make it impossible for us to catch. The combination of the results mean that it's alive for the final day.
Yeah, I think as long as Arsenal don't lose on the weekend, they're still alive on the final day.
Okay, right. What do you do with the return leg at Valencia? You got one Premier League game where you're alive for top 4 your whole season to a trip to Burnley, but you've got one game in Valencia that gets you into a European final potentially. Does Emery at this point have to say, screw rotation? Every one of my best available players plays in every one of the remaining games.
Yeah, I think
can he play Koscielny twice a week now? I mean,
I think you have to. I mean, you got to really kind of make that decision. Is a 90 or an 85% Koscielny, is that so bad? Is that worse than the alternatives? Is it better than or is that worse than a Mavropanos? Is that worse than sticking Mustafi, Monreal, Socrates out there? Probably. So I mean, I think you got to just stick with everybody and say, guys, it's the end of the season. You got to give everything. I know nobody's 100% at this part of the season, so you just got to go out there and do it. I can't really imagine rotation being a factor with so much on the line in both matches.
He's got Torreira, Mkhitaryan, and Iwobi on the bench tonight. I mean, it is an interesting situation for me. To me, do you think that if either Iwobi or Mkhitaryan had been anything better than garbage in the last month, we'd be seeing one of them play tonight with one up top? I think we've been best over the last couple of months when we played one up top with one or both of Iwobi and Mkhitaryan in there. But recently, they've both been so bad and unreliable. I don't think... I mean, it tells you all you need to know about where we are with our wide forwards, that we basically now don't start any for our big games.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it, too, is just the way that the squad is so imbalancedly built, that we have all of our talent is basically, center forwards and Ozil right now. Yeah.
We, you know what we need to do? We need to bring Mustafi back on, because what he's going to do, let's just say hello to our special guest, Mustafi. Hello, Mustafi. Hello, back on top. Back on top. Back on top. Back on top. Okay. Hey, Mustafi, can you do me a favor? We're going to look through some highlights, some clips of you playing. Can you just sort of walk us through a little bit what we're seeing from you on the pitch? That would be awesome. Yes, I talk you through what you were watching. Yes, no problem at all. Okay, well, here we go. We'll cue it up. What are we seeing here? oh, here is my unique running style I use to track men. And then here you see how I train to put legs out and go to ground in challenge. Here, waving to ref to try to play offside line when player clearly onside. Here, chasing back to man who has gotten past me after I've been on ground. So all my moves on display here. You see all that I do, all in this clip. Thanks, man. Really appreciate you walking us through that. Yeah, back on top. Okay, that's Mustafi. Scott, we got a good look at Mustafi's sort of running style, tackling style, philosophy, approach to the game in that clip. It's really everything that you expect from the guy. Are you expecting to see more of that great work tonight?
Yeah, I fully expect that this is going to be a masterclass of Mustafi doing what he does. So hopefully, he will do it to where he knocks over some players, not get foul called, and springs a counterattack, and Arsenal score all sorts of good goals.
Yeah. Well, is the biggest. So, do you know anything about Valencia? Can you walk me through who I need to be worried about with Mustafi lately? It seems like playing people on side is kind of his jam. What's the threat from Valencia? What do I have to worry about?
To be totally honest with you, I have not seen a Valencia match all season. La Liga just does not have great coverage, where I can watch the matches. So I could make something up.
But, we're fine. We're fine without that. So what I can tell you that I know just from listening to other podcasts, I won't name them because they're not worth listening to. Certainly one of them was not the Arscast that did a Valencia preview with a journalist from Spain. Listen to him, obviously. But they started their season really poorly. They were actually in the relegation zone. They got booted from the Champions League, obviously. They've come on. Now, I think they lost at the weekend, but they've come on. They've gotten themselves right back into a top 4 contention race. They've really boosted their season with their wins in the Europa League. So, unfortunately, we're playing a team that, at least from a trajectory standpoint, seems to be on the up. That's a bit of a concern, I would say. But overall, here, let's bring it up again. We'll get your predictions on the screen. Tonight, you have us picking up 1.6 expected points. Now, for people looking at this saying there are no points on offer, this is basically you saying, if a win was 3 points, if a draw was 1, and if a loss was 0, we'd be expected. We're sort of, as I'm looking at that, we're sort of 60% odds to win the game. Well, there you go. 44% for a win, 26% for a draw, 28% for a Valencia win.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, I think it still looks good for, Arsenal are obviously the favorites in this one, so I think that it is positive for them to be able to get out of this in a good position. Hopefully, not giving up too many away goals. It looks like one away goal is the most likely occurrence, but there's still a pretty good chance to get out of this with a clean sheet, I'd say.
Oh my God, yeah, the chat reminding me they have Gabriel and they have Coughlin. We won't face Coughlin.
Coughlin, he is suspended for today.
Yeah, it's a shame. So you have us at 62% to advance. Of that 62%. It looks like around 50-something% regular win, 50-something% away goal win. There's an extra time win and penalty win in there, which hopefully don't come into play. Right now, if I had to say to you, our odds to go on and win the Europa League versus our odds to actually make this comeback and finish in the top 4, which do you think is the more realistic route at this point, so close to the end of both?
Man, it actually probably is pretty even both way. So I think it's probably about Arsenal, maybe about 30% still to get into the top 4, and probably pretty close to that to win the Europa League. So, given that they're probably, between 50 and 60% to get past this, then the final, depends on who they face. But if it's Chelsea, that's probably a pretty close to a 50-50 chance as well. So, you kind of figure that it's about 25% chance that Arsenal, are able to win the Europa League. There's still a 25 to 30% chance of getting in top 4 through the league. So overall, it's probably about 40% that Arsenal are able to get into Champions League for next season.
Yeah, the crazy thing is, right? Like,
it's not great. Think about what it was 3 weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't trust us, but I don't trust Chelsea. It's not like they're good. They actually. Who was it that they just failed to beat at home? Burnley, right?
Yeah.
So, the thought that they're just going to...
They really did not play well against United either. I thought United played well against them, and then United kind of just gave up.
Yeah.
Which I thought that was kind of dumb because a draw doesn't really do anything for Manchester United. They really should have gone out and tried to beat Chelsea, which was, always at the wheel.
If you just if you just need any reminder of how bad draws are and how worthless they are, and why we need a manager, maybe this is something Emery needs to learn, who goes for wins. Manchester City are top of the league right now with 4 losses. Liverpool only have 1, but they've got 7 draws.
Well, same thing. Look at Tottenham.
Yeah,
They have 12 losses, but they
1
are
draw.
Exactly. 3 points is so bad, so much more
Should be
superior
going for
than
the
just
win
getting 1.
every game. Yeah. So I mean, well, I guess we'll see how it shakes out. Let's talk about what we're seeing on the screen right now, though. This is the April we've had, and I think for people who've been on the fence about Unai Emery, and I will admit, there are things about Emery I really appreciate. I think he has made us palpably, noticeably better in big games. I think when he has a good team to analyze and break down and go for, he's been real good at figuring them out, and we've done pretty well. Where I think he's struggled is using his superior talent in the attacking half to just go beat up on mid-table and lower table teams, and we've seen him not really know how to set out doing that. You go into April, we beat our Newcastle 2-0 at home, and from there we were in really good shape. We lose to Everton, beat Napoli, beat Watford in a game that was not particularly fun, beat Napoli away, good. And
then, a 10-man Watford.
Yeah, 10-man Watford. And then loss at home to Palace, loss away to Wolves, massacred away to Leicester. And so I think this April has people maybe asking some questions about him. And do you think that maybe one thing we're not really fairly valuing is just the fixture congestion combined with the injuries? I mean, you look at Chelsea, they're collapsing. Spurs in the league, collapsing. United, collapsing. None of the top 4 teams, aside from Liverpool and City, have really managed all of the games particularly well. You're seeing the impact it's having. We've lost Bellerin for the season, Welbeck for the season, Holding for the season. We're playing with the ghost and the taped up bones of Koscielny trying to play all the time. You know, the fact that we had to play Jenkinson and Mavropanos and Mustafi in a back line together. I mean, we
started the season with no left backs.
Well, let me ask you this. Is April more a sign of the shortcomings of Emery tactically and philosophically, or is April more a sign of the realities of what our squad is and how poorly prepared it is for the kinds of fixture congestion we're facing right now?
I think you can say both. I think both of those things.
So, all right. So let me get specifics from you. So, what specifically about Emery? What failings specifically would you say we've seen in April? Because here's the thing: for those of you watching who haven't listened to the podcast we did yesterday yet, I invited Scottish Dave on. He's kind of a doomy guy. Doesn't really have a Twitter presence. Doesn't really have anything to risk by lighting everything on fire. I thought he'd come on and give sort of a measured analysis, because in the back channel chats we have, he's kind of like, yeah, I think Emery's okay. Came on and just went full blast Emery out. Wasn't expecting it. Lit our podcast on fire and then vanished into the darkness. Oh, you've got Emery. Who in? Who's in? Ajax in. Yeah, Ajax all the way in. We'll laugh at Spurs when it's time to laugh at Spurs. But because it's not yet. We're not jumping to that conclusion. So specific things in April that you think have been shortcomings about Emery, not just generally, the results have gone poor. What do you think he's gotten wrong specifically that you think is a sign that he may be a problem, not just that he made a few bad choices?
So I think the biggest thing is that, what we can see about Arsenal is that because it's an unbalanced squad, we don't have great defenders, but our talent is in our attacking players, that we probably should have leaned into that and really tried to do more of the, see if you can outscore us, because we're just going to come attack you. If you score a couple, who cares? We're going to try to score 4 or 5 on you. That's probably the best way that I would have done, especially against, lower quality teams. Just make it an open game and really try to push them. If they don't want to play, at least you push them all the way back with, overwhelming offense. So I think that's probably been the biggest thing, is that he's really tried to cover up for weaknesses instead of really leaning into Arsenal's strengths. And I think that's been a little bit too conservative with this team. The way the team's built, it's not built to be conservative. So I think that's probably been the biggest
that's fair.
Tactical thing that's been the weakness. And that's probably cost us points with those kinds of ways that he's come out to set up. And then I think that there is also major issues with the way the squad is built. It's completely unbalanced. We don't have good defenders. We don't have a left back. As soon as we got these injuries, we didn't really do anything to cover for them. In the winter transfer market, we brought in a kind of a useless Denis Suarez. So
that has not
there-
been good. I'll admit to that.
So yeah, there's been squad issues. The rotation early in the season probably didn't help because it left people hurting more minutes than really we probably want them at this time of the season. So yeah, there's been issues all around. There's lots of blame.
Look, the
for
rotation
situation.
thing, I mean, if I wanted to be generous, you could say every manager has to. It's one thing to know intellectually that you have no winter break and that you're going to be playing an insane amount of games. It's another thing to really go through it and see the impact it has on your squad. So, I think I can cut him some slack for that. For me, the single biggest thing, I read an Arsenal column on Twitter. You're familiar with him? He's done some tactical work for our blog site. Really good website to check out, by the way.
There's a guy who writes the By the Numbers post there that's pretty good.
Not familiar with it. For me, the thing that he said that I thought was really telling is he said, there's this idea of tinkering or, changing approaches to it. The point he made that I think is a really valid one is, ideally what you want, I think, is a manager who has a central philosophy, a central plan that is his driving philosophical approach to the game. And then he has the ability to vary those things so that what happens over the course of the season is that you have this main approach, and then in a particular game, we might try something a little different to neutralize the opposition. Or at halftime of a game where the central approach isn't working, there are changes you can make to sort of pivot around that approach a little bit and do something different. And I think what we've seen with Emery is maybe you could call this back three a central approach, but I don't really buy that. I think you saw what he wanted this team to be against Chelsea and City right off the bat at the start of the season. A back four, a pressing agent at 10 like Ramsey, pressing aggressively, winning in transition, and scoring goals off those transitions. And I think, what we've developed into this back three where we get the ball to the wing back and we cross the ball in and we don't have a lot of possession, we don't really contest the midfield. I don't know that that was his philosophy that he started with. And so I don't mind. I want a manager who reacts, a manager who changes and adjusts for games. That's one thing we always said with Arsenal that we want. But Scott, I think what we've gotten instead is a manager who doesn't have, well, maybe not doesn't have, but hasn't this season been able to find any specific philosophy at all. And so for those of us who want to love him, who want to really warm to him, what we're struggling to do is understand what he wants. Like if he said to me, long-term what I want, he said it right, protagonists, right? It's a joke that's kind of thrown out. If he said what I want long-term is to be a pressing team that creates chaos in the opposition half, and that's how we win games, and we're not looking to possess the ball, whatever it is, I don't have a feel for it. And because I don't have a feel for it, I don't know what I'm supposed to warm to. And because I see something different every game and then every second half of every game, I don't even know how to evaluate what direction he wants to go in. How do you evaluate a manager if you're not totally clear on what he's trying to accomplish?
Yeah, I think that is a hard thing to be able to say. And I jokingly have my Emery out sign, but I did talk about it on the pod yesterday. I'm very much like Emery, undecided. If he leaves at the end of the year, I'm not going to be like heartbroken and like go rioting. If he stays, I don't think that's a huge mistake. I think there are bigger issues at the club than the manager. I don't think the manager has absolutely cost us games. I don't think he's won us a lot of games with his changes either. I think he's made mistakes. I think that he's had the wrong approach at times. Yes, he's flexible. He's tried to correct them. So I mean, he's been about exactly what you'd expect. I mean, he's a good manager.
Yeah.
But you look at the league, there's a lot of good managers that are about his quality. So having a good manager anymore isn't a huge advantage, because you look down the table and there's all sorts of good managers here.
Let's make a point.
But he's not a great manager. He's a good manager.
You look at the top six, and like Pep Guardiola is an elite manager. I think Klopp is an elite manager. There's some people that are gonna say, "Why? What has he won?" I mean, I think it's pretty clear he's doing a good job.
Yeah, and I think
with a good squad that's been invested in properly. What were you gonna say?
I think Pochettino is a very good manager, because you look at the issues that they've had with their squad.
I don't know.
They didn't sign a single player this season. Their squad is incredibly thin. They have talent in their squad, but man, you look at some of the midfield that he's had to try to deal with, and I couldn't imagine how he's able to kind of put those things together. So I hate to say it, but I think he is a very good manager. Are
you Tottenham in disguise? Yeah. I think he's pretty good. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is obviously garbage, and like long may he stay.
Yeah.
You know,
I think Sarri is a good manager based on his track record in Italy. I think
See-
that he's had a huge, issue with trying to change the culture at Chelsea, because that's been very, long term. It's been a counterattacking defense first kind of team, and he's coming in and trying to completely change that. So that was never really going to be an easy job to be able to fix. But he's got a team that's arguably it's probably slightly more talented than what Arsenal are, but not hugely so, and they're in the exact same position. So it's not like he's been a failure, based on probably.
See, I think he's failed in the opposite way of Emery, in the sense that he has been so dogmatic in wanting to play a certain way. But to be fair to him, I think that club has sort of the opposite problem. They have no strikers they can depend on, and they got rid of Morata, who was fine, to get Higuain, who's not even good. So I don't know what they're doing. I look at this table, and there's one thing that really jumps out at me, Scott. In December, we were talking about how it just sucks because someone's going to need 80 points to finish fourth this season. Now it looks like 71 or 2 might do it. All of Tottenham, Chelsea, and Arsenal and United have really collapsed this season. Do you have anything to attribute that to? Do you think the Premier League mid-table is starting to catch up? There's a pretty big gap between United and Wolves in seventh.
Yeah, I think points-wise, there's a pretty big gap, but I think talent-wise, that gap
the league is deeper, isn't it? In the middle.
It's significantly narrowed because, you look at, Leicester, Watford, Wolves, Everton, those are, good teams. Even going down even further, Crystal Palace isn't bad. Newcastle's, pretty good, or at least they have a good manager there who makes every match there, tight and competitive and something that they can do. Eddie Howe at Bournemouth has kept them, a respectable team. They're not going to be, especially when, you play them at home, that's not an easy match. I think Southampton with Ralph Hasenhüttl has been very impressive. Burnley, absolutely just Burnley it up and will throw bodies in your way and will frustrate you and make it a hard match.
That final day of the season is going to be one hell of a nail biter.
Yeah, you just saw what they did to Manchester City, where I think Manchester City had close to like 30 shots on them, and I think almost 3 expected goals.
So what are we going to do when we have our 7?
Got through inches. Yeah.
All right, look. Let's start to wrap up because we're about a half hour from kickoff, and want to give people a chance to find the way to watch it. Because especially if you're in the United States, it's not on TV. That's how big a semifinal this is. It's great competition that we desperately need to get out of. Let's start to talk key players tonight. The lineup's on the screen there. As I look at it, this is me looking at it. I just can't help but think there's going to need to be a moment of brilliance from Ozil and Oba and Locke. That's what you look at and you see in that lineup. What do you see over there? What do you see?
I think it's about the same thing. You see those 3 guys. That's the attacking. They're gonna have to do something. So
so do you get a feeling that this is going to be like a lot of the games where it's kind of a bit of a damp squib, as they say, not a particularly enjoyable affair for maybe 45 or 50 minutes, and then Emery does what he does and changes it up, and the game comes to life with the last 30 or 40 minutes to go?
Yeah, so it looks like that Valencia is they're coming out with a more defensive lineup. So I think that Arsenal will probably have more of the ball. It'll be interesting to see how much pressing Valencia do, or if it's basically they're going to do a rear guard action where they basically sit and try to clog and say, hey, break us down, because I'm not sure Arsenal have that. We don't have a guy who's going to be able to take on a guy and cause havoc that way, so we're going to have to try to pass through them. And it's really going to depend on the movement of the strikers to be able to create things. And hopefully Ozil has a really good match where he's able to create stuff that nobody else can see.
What we need, I think the biggest difference from the Palace game, we need Ozil to be able to receive the ball on the edge of the final third and not have to drop back to the halfway line. He can't be all the way deep, yeah. The other thing is if Valencia sit deep, that's the other thing that scares me about this lineup. If Valencia decide to just pack it in and be in a low block defensively, what does this lineup do to that? I think that's the real problem. There's 2 goal scorers. There's one guy who's going to sit on the edge of the area and try to pull the strings. But who's going to be the additional threat? Is Guendouzi going to run past the strikers into the box? He's not. Is Xhaka? He's not. So if Valencia's sitting a low block, do you see us having any real way to break that down with this kind of lineup?
I think it's going to have to be, Ozil, or I'm sorry, Aubameyang and Lacazette doing, yeoman's work, moving around quickly and really trying to, get their center backs to feel uncomfortable.
Do you think we'll press, so we press the crap out of Napoli?
I hope so,
leg.
because I think that's going to be the key. So especially if they're going to be sitting back, we need to press them instantly as soon as the ball is lost.
That's
and it's got to be the top three and the two wingbacks.
Xhaka?
They got it if they're gonna it's especially if we're gonna leave the two midfielders kind of deep. You really got to push up those wingbacks and have them really help with the press.
Yeah,
it's gonna be that's a high risk kind of thing, but I think that's what you got to do. Try to really cut it out before they're able to counter.
Well, there you have it. 62% predicted by Scott's model. What's your model's name, by the way?
It doesn't have a name.
It's not named. It's not like a boat or like a where you give it like a fancy name, like something like that.
All the good baseball models have names. Like Marcel the monkey and Petcoda. And,
you need to come up with a name for your model. Tonight you have us 44% chance to win. Let me ask you this: do you think we have to keep a clean sheet to progress?
No, you don't have to. But
I'm asking. I don't mean like literally. Do you have to? I mean, do you think we need a clean sheet?
I think if we don't have a clean sheet, I think you need a 2-goal lead going into the next leg. So I will take a 1-0 or a 3-1. I mean, obviously, I prefer a 2-0 would be the ideal. What we did against Napoli, that was just about perfect. So yeah, give me a 3-1 or a 1-0, and I'll be happy.
Yeah, I mean, I would take that. What do you predict?
I predicted 2-2.
2-2?
I'm better than what I was yesterday, because yesterday I was predicting a loss. So
2-2.
2-2.
Hey, quick question from the chat, and I've actually been curious about this. Do you have any access to running stats? You don't, right?
I don't, and so all of the stuff I have, it's the event data, and that is another company that tracks the running stats, and that not as widely distributed.
Well, because the only reason I ask is I know we were topping all the running stats in the league early in the season, and you do wonder if that started to fade a little bit, and if maybe that had an impact. One thing I will say about Pochettino, his teams fade. They always fade. Because he knows.
Yeah, and I think that was something that Klopp had in his first couple of seasons.
But he's changed.
As well.
He doesn't press every game the way he did. He's picking his spots more, and I think that's an important difference that he's made. We'll really see how it goes. So, all right, as we start to wrap up, you're saying 2-2. I mean, you know me. When push comes to shove and it's time to make a prediction, I actually wind up being forever the optimist. But against Leicester,
you got to do something to get you to watch the
I
match.
picked 3-0 Leicester. I didn't see anything from the two games that came before. The scary thing is this game comes at a time when I don't think Emery knows if he can trust his players, if he knows what he's going to get from them. It worries me that Mustafi is playing. I could see this playing out a lot, unfortunately, like the Atleti first leg last season, where we get some chances, maybe miss some chances, and even though we're probably the better team on the whole, they wind up taking advantage of one defensive mistake and scoring, and we go back to their place with a 1-1 or something like that. Now, I don't think, the one thing I will say is I'm not as scared of going to Valencia as I was of going to Atleti. Atleti was a much tougher tie than this is.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That's not to say they can't beat us or hurt us. I don't mind going up against Gabriel. We certainly know what he's like. A little bit of a hothead. I mean, who knows? Maybe Aubameyang and Lacazette can try to get in his head a little bit. We saw Diego Costa wind him up once. I don't think our team, our players are really wired that way. I will say, fuck it. I'm going to say 2-0 to the Arsenal. I can't help it. I feel like when we come up against these teams from the other leagues, you really see the gulf in class. And Atleti, we're in a different category, but I'm not sure Valencia are in that category. And you know what? I mean, I know this is gambler's fallacy, but fuck it. I feel like Lacazette and Aubameyang are due. They're due for a good game. They are elite or at least borderline elite strikers who have not been playing well. And you just got to think one or both of them are due for a breakout. And this could be where it happens. So we'll see. I certainly think with a 2-0, even Arsenal will probably struggle to screw it up. I think you saw in the Napoli tie that kind of, they didn't go into that game with any confidence that they could recover it.
Exactly, because one of those things, a 2-0, and then you get an away goal, and that's pretty much it.
Yep.
So
absolutely right. Well, all right. So I'll let you tell everybody what to do. Scott, what do we got to do?
So subscribe, hit the little bell for notifications when we do this. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, all those good fun things. So yeah, it's fun.
Yep, that's right. All right. Well, Scott, thanks so much, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
My name's Elliot Smith. Nope, that's not me. My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter at Yankee Gunner. We love doing these. I'm sorry that April was so bad for the pod and for the live shows and stuff. I traveled a lot for my job, it says there. So it is what it is, but we will be doing a lot more of this coming up. We'll do a big transfer special at the end of the season. Clive will be on for that, obviously, and lots more Clive because everybody loves Clive so much. I understand that. But we really... Yeah. We really do appreciate you. So, up the Arsenal. Here we go. Big night. Let's get to a European final tonight. Let's do it tonight. Let's finish top 4. Let's do all those things. And then we can laugh at Scottish Dave for saying that Emery should go. Because that guy's a jerk and you know it. Anyway, we do appreciate it. We love you. So, we'll talk to you after Arsenal 10. Valencia 0. Up the Arsenal. Come on, Arsenal.